Well, I have a cousin who lives down in Vincennes who ended up in the hospital a few months ago thinking he was going to die. Fortunately, he turned the corner, but there for a little while, his mind was turned toward his own mortality. So when he got out of the hospital, he had a will drawn up and phoned to ask if I would serve as the executor of his estate, which I declined to do because I've done that before and I know how it ends. It never ends sitting in a comfortable chair in a law office signing a few papers. It ends up wearing latex gloves, sorting through underwear, and hauling everything else to Goodwill. I speak for all executors everywhere when I tell you that if you think you're near death, please dispose of your underwear first. Have you ever begun a task and ended up much more involved than you had anticipated? That has been true for me with this sermon series, which didn't begin as a series, but as a single musing about maps, be they people or paper, which inform and guide our lives. But because I've always been interested in maps, I thought a little bit more about them and spoke about them again last week, specifically about what we do when our earliest maps or guides were flawed. How do we deal with the negative or destructive influences in our early lives? This is a profound issue because so many of us still carry the scars of hurtful parenting, which I'm sad to say won't be resolved by one sermon. That's why God made therapists, to help us heal our inner lives, the process of which requires profound courage. I'm always amazed at the men, it's especially with men, it seems, who won't go to a therapist because they think it means they're weak, when in my experience, just the opposite is true, that to go to someone you don't know well and to open your soul and spirit to that person is an act always of profound and transformative courage. But now I find myself knee-deep in maps, having begun something far more involved than I first imagined. Because it turns out that maps are metaphors for our lives. Over the next several weeks, I will be describing how and why that is. My aim, as always, is to further our understanding and evolution as human beings. I have said it before, and I will say it again, and I'll probably keep saying it until I die. We are not born lost and full of sin, estranged from God, in need of salvation. That is not how we were born. We are born incomplete, in need of growth. Our need is to understand ourselves, develop ourselves, and ultimately love ourselves and accept ourselves and others. The maps and guides in our lives, whether people or paper, show us the way. Every year or so I buy a new atlas, which I carry in my car in case I'm somewhere without a cell phone signal. My biggest fear in life is to be lost on a remote country road as darkness is falling and banjos are playing, only to click on my phone and see the words, "No service." After meeting last Sunday, Don Adams told me how much he enjoyed driving somewhere and getting lost, that he's discovered the most wonderful things while lost. And the whole time he was telling me this, Lynn was standing behind him, rolling her eyes, which I've noticed happens a lot in our meeting. We were out to dinner last month with the Striedelmeyers, and Mark told this fantastic joke about a talking dog, and the whole time he's telling it, Cynthia is just buried, her face in her hands, and when she raises her head as if praying to God, her eyes are spinning 360 degrees. Oh, all of this passion. I try never to get involved in marital disputes, but philosophically I agree with Don that there is something to be said for the beauty we discover on life's less traveled roads. As Robert Frost so eloquently wrote, two roads diverged into a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. It is the small roads that matter the most. The small roads. But because our eyes are drawn to the larger features on a map, we have been conditioned to think the most significant events of our lives are found in the larger features, births, graduations, marriages, both their beginning and their ends, promotions, retirements, and deaths. These are the things that loom largest in our lives, which occupy the most space on our maps. But if we focus only on those large and looming times, we lose sight of the magic of smaller moments, which happens to be where most of life unfolds. These days, the high point of our lives happens every night at 9:30 when we FaceTime with our grandson Miles. If you had told me 14 years ago that the best part of my day would be spent engaging a child not yet born with technology not yet invented, I would have dismissed the possibility. What other delights await just over the horizon? Joys we can't yet imagine. Our yearly meeting superintendent, who I hope you get the chance to meet during yearly meeting, he's just a wonderful person. He sent me a form to fill out. I really like this guy, except that he's getting too big on forms for me to fill out. I've been a Quaker pastor now for close to 40 years and have always shied away from filling out any forms, but this guy's so nice I can't turn him down. So he sent me this form asking me to describe the most significant moments during my time here as your pastor. Those moments written in bold print, in big letters. Now, we've had quite a few noteworthy events in the past 23 years, but all I could think about was how meaningful it is in this hectic, pounding, boisterous world to gather in silence each Sunday with people you love, who love you back. Where else in our lives does that happen? And if it stopped happening, wouldn't our lives be the poorer for it? But how do you write about the magic of smaller moments on a form? There was not enough space. Joanne and I were talking about summer this past week, just looking back over it because hers is concluding. I asked her what the best part of her summer had been. Now, you would think she would say something like spending time with me, but you would be mistaken. She said, I like it most when I first get up and I'm sitting at the kitchen table drinking coffee, and the house is so quiet, I tell you, friends, there is magic in these small moments. I've always appreciated that story in the Bible about Jesus meeting up with two of his disciples following his crucifixion and resurrection, which were certainly large events. We based an entire religion on them. But that isn't when Jesus was revealed to them. It was only afterwards, when he joined them in a meal, that they recognized him. Luke wrote, when Jesus was at the table with them, he took the bread, blessed it, and broke it, and gave it to them, and then they knew who they were with. And then their eyes were opened. There are all kinds of ironies here, chief among them their journey from Israel's largest, most impressive city to one of its small corners, from bold print to small print. Pay attention always, friends, to what happens in small moments, in the small places of life. God might be revealed there. I have a friend named Riley, a fellow member of the Quaker Outlaws Motorcycle Club, and therefore an eminent theologian. And I was talking about this issue with Riley just this week. He said, I call this tendency to look for meaning in ever larger events the inflation of expectations. The inflation of expectations. I said, what do you mean by that? He said, as we age, we too often need more and more to excite us. Everything must be bigger and better when just the opposite should be true. We should learn to revel in the smaller moments. What does it take to open your eyes? What does it take to move you, to stir you, to amaze you? Do we need something ever larger, ever more magnificent to capture our attention? Or can we appreciate the smaller, the magic of smaller moments revealed on roads less traveled? Well, I noticed this morning while I was preaching that some of you were hanging on my every word, leaning forward, anticipating the next thought. And I sensed that others among you were thinking, boy, I sure would like to hear that talking dog joke that Mark's doing. So our closing today will be Mark Striedelmeyer sharing with us the gift of laughter, which indeed is a holy, holy gift. Mark, the pulpit is yours. Yes, and if the wives together around Cynthia to lend support in this.
I'm sorry, Cindy. See, there's this guy who's sitting in his living room reading the newspaper. And he gets to the classified section, and he sees this ad that says, for sale, talking dog, $25. Well, it has a phone number, so he calls up and says, you the guy with the talking dog for sale? He says, yeah, that's me. Do you mind if I come by and see this dog? The address is in the ad. So he drives by the house, and there's the guy sitting on the front porch. You the guy with the talking dog? Yeah. Do you mind if I see him? He's in the living room. So he goes in there, and there's this dog sitting in the recliner with the remote watching TV. He says, are you the talking dog? The dog said, yeah, it's me. Well, that's remarkable. I've never met such a thing before. This is just remarkable. And the dog said, that's nothing. When they have a disaster and they need to find the victims, they bring me around and I sniff them out. When they're looking for drugs, I sniff around and find the contraband. This is just remarkable. I can't believe this. So he stepped outside and he says, you're selling that dog for $25? It's a talking dog. The guy says, yeah, but he's a liar.
So friends, laugh, enjoy life, look for the small things. Relying not on the big events in our lives to sustain us through, but the everyday wonders and the small joys and the happiness that can be found in friends. Amen. Turn and greet one another. Joseph,